When you think of classic rock bands, which ones usually come to mind? AC/DC, Def Leppard, hell, maybe even Motley Crue or Kiss. Well, I hate to break it to you, but that's wrong. And you're wrong. And you should genuinely feel ashamed of yourself, because it's fucking Van Halen. Ah, that classic squealy guitar sound, those crisp harmonies, and the bass just thumping in the background, and the drums just keeping everybody in line. But there's something I've always noticed with the older Van Halen records: the mixing. It's not necessarily weird, but when compared to modern techniques, it of course just doesn't compare. Hell, we can do everything at home now. But the one thing that I've noticed is the panning. I mean, shit, just check this out. Guitar on the left, bass on the right, and drums and vocals just wherever you may please. It's interesting to hear simply because, I mean, all of this was done live. Almost all of their albums were done exclusively live. And it just kind of showed off this like raw and unheard of just attitude. Like, yeah, we're going to show you what's up. It gave them a newfound sound and explosivity, which helped define the genre into what it was back then. Not to mention Eddie Van Halen's just pyrotechnical guitar playing just managed to soak in the reality of what we were actually listening to. Something fierce and something fucking intense. But this all gave me a very interesting idea. What if I took these old Van Halen records and I mixed them using modern mixing techniques? Modern being used very loosely here, but modern according to the bedroom musician, of which I am, and many of you might be as well. But how would it sound? Would it sound too crisp? Would it sound too polished? Was that rockin' 80s raw sound the actual like key to making these things sound the way they sound? But I guess I'll leave that up for you to decide. Anyways, I'm going to cut over to the DAW and I'm going to show you the setup of which we are going to be doing this test. So now we're over here in the DAW. And what we have going on here along the bottom is each individual piece of the drum kit being EQ'd. And for each bus, it is just having the LED compressor from Purified Audio. On almost every single individual track, except for the buses, I have this SLP 538 EQ also from Purified Audio. One of the greatest plugins I have ever used, and I am genuinely thankful for that bundle that was like, what, like $3 whenever it was out? Might still be out, so if you still have a chance, I would snag that ASAP. But that is basically it for the drums. We have, you know, your kick sum, kick sub, and that gets sent to the kick bus, snare as well, snare top, snare bottom, snare is its own bus, toms, hats, and ride actually don't have a bus. I like how they sound on their own and not, you know, lumped in with the overheads. And then for the room, your mono, close, and far, you get the gist. And then all of this is sent to this final bus, this drum bus, which gets one more layer of EQ and then a final layer of compression. And then over here for the guitars, we are running just 2 guitar tracks panned hard left and hard right. They did not do double tracking back then for the Van Halen albums because everything was recorded live. And if there was a solo, it would basically be overdubbed or they just wouldn't have a rhythm track at all. They would just have Michael Anthony's bass parts. Speaking of Michael Anthony's bass parts, here we have the OMB2 plugin. Now this thing is absolutely incredible. It is free. And honestly, it does have a kind of like synthy style sound, but honestly, when it blends in with the rest of the instruments, you can't even tell. It genuinely just sounds like a bass player. And then we have the SLP 538 EQ on the bass track and the LED compressor at the bottom of the chain. And then on the guitar bus, just the LED compressor. This is a very simple setup and it makes everything sound huge. For the drums, I am actually using the program GGD Modern and Massive. I have it set on just the raw default kit. Absolutely incredible sound. Very little tweaking needs done, except for just, you know, whenever you have every single piece individually mapped out, that's whenever you really need to do your tweaking. But other than that, genuinely great kit. Sounds phenomenal. And then for the master chain over here, we actually are just using Easy Mix. and it is on the Master 1 setup. That's it. And honestly, this just makes everything sound huge. The Master 1 gives it an extra top and bottom, and it adds a tiny bit of parallel compression, and that is just the entire setup. It's really crazy how I managed to make all of this just kind of have a really cool and modern-ish sound, but this is my typical setup for whenever I'm recording my own music. So if you like how any of these mixes sound, don't be afraid to check out my channel because I've got some, original music on it. But that is the setup. We are going to go ahead and go back to the main camera and conduct the test. Well, now that we have the basic idea down, we are going to take these classic riffs and modernize them. And we are going to see how it goes from there, and we can draw our own conclusions. Enjoy. So, what'd you think? Did that modern style sound give it a bit of extra clarity and crispness that you think the record needed from back then? Or do you think it was best to just kind of leave this idea alone and just leave the record how it was? Let me know your opinion down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed watching this, subscribe and let me know if I should continue to make more content like this in the future. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Conclusions from there. Let me know what you think. Fuck.